Islam, and greetings. Princeanaelbey, Divine Prince and Supreme Grand Sheik of the Moorish Science Temple of America through Temple Alhambra. And I pray that you all have been good to one another, and you've been good to yourselves, and that you have been loving one another, especially that. In this session, I got a response from a viewer, and I love this type of viewer. I absolutely love this type of viewer. This viewer shared his opinions with me on a video I did explaining about the Constitution, the differences between the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution for the United States. And I'm going to explain some differences to you between those two documents. In the Constitution for the United States, the first way to identify that document is in its title. It will say the Constitution for the United States. The document which was drafted up and forced on the people was drafted and written up in 1871. And it has on its heading the Constitution of the United States. Now that's just one difference between those two documents. Second difference, in the Constitution for the United States, in the 13th Amendment, it actually has Abraham Lincoln's 20 sections. In the Constitution of the United States, the 13th Amendment only has 2. It only has 2. Because, I'm not going into the 1320 all over again. Let me give you these identifying characteristics and the differences between those two documents. In the Constitution for the United States, there was a United States Congress in assembly. Now, in that Congress, there were Moors from the different political parties, because most Americans, especially amalgamated Moorish Americans, don't believe, check that, either don't believe or were never taught that we had always had political parties here. Among the last of the political parties that we Moors had established here is called the Whiggamore Party. The Whiggamore Party, the last vestiges of it is the elephant, which adorns the banner of the Republican Party. The reason that that elephant is there is because this has always been a republic. This has never been a democracy. Now, as far as the Constitution, check that. The differences between the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution for the United States. I have here, in George Washington's very own handwriting, his letter to the emperor, to Uncle Muhammad. This highlighted section here, and this is for the viewer who actually remarked on the video. The viewer states in his comment that there is only the Constitution of the United States. And of course, as everyone knows, I do not argue. I don't argue. I understand that people can only impart what they know. Their level of knowledge. Prayerfully, they will be open to more knowledge than they already have. It is only the obstinate who will argue and become juvenile in their responses, and I've seen a lot of them on YouTube. It's just fucking ridiculous. And these are supposed to be grown-ups. At any rate, this viewer, he stated that the Constitution that was written in the 1700s is the same Constitution that is being used to bludgeon Americans over the head today. Those aren't his words, those are mine. But the statement that he made was, it's the same document. I'm going to read from George Washington's own hand-written letter to Uncle Muhammad. And this is what it says. It states, in the course of the approaching winter, the national legislature, this highlighted line here, this is where George Washington and his buddies dissolved the United States Congress in Assembly. Because in this letter to Uncle Muhammad, George clearly states that the Congress, which Uncle Muhammad okayed, George told him in this letter right here that they have dissolved the Congress, and in its place, it installed a legislature, which is another way that you can tell that the Constitution of the United States is a fake. Because when Uncle Muhammad okayed the Constitution for the United States and set his hand and seal to it in 1786, there was no legislature. In the Constitution of the United States, it will tell you in Article 1, all power is vested in the legislature. And that is not how the Constitution for the United States read. That's not how it reads. The power is in the hands of the people in the Constitution for the United States, not a gaggle of rich lawyers who turn politicians to control every aspect of your life, which is what democracy is. I want to thank that viewer because this is something that I would not have thought to demonstrate to you all. And so I thank you, viewer, for giving me this opportunity to expand further on the topic of the Constitution for the United States. Because you see, Uncle Muhammad never okayed a legislature. There was a United States Congress in Assembly. Let me tell you about that word legislate. The word legislate means that a group of people who are not you, do not live your life, do not live your kind of life, they get to sit in the corporation of the United States and make up rules for your life. And when you hear it has been legislated, and when you go against it, you get arrested. The word legal, the first three letters are the same letters that are in legislate. Now, what this means is a group of people who are not you. They get to legislate your lives away. and make you believe there's nothing you can do about it. But there is. You can make them produce the organic Constitution for the United States, which they hid after they murdered Lincoln. And I'll share this with you too. For those of you who are Asiatic, and for those of you who are amalgamated Moors, and you hold yourself out as a Democrat, I don't know how much scholarship you have on that particular entity, but I will share this with you. The Democratic organization, or the term Democrat, or the people who call themselves Democrats, anyway, it was around 1829. That was when anybody ever heard the word Democrat. Now, let me share something with you, Asiatics, and you amalgamated Moors. It was the Democrats who actually started slavery. The Democrats did that. And the plan that they had devised has worked for lo these few hundred years. And they've worked on you. Now, when Abraham Lincoln threw his hat into the ring to become president of the United States, and remember, the president of the United States is not, I repeat, is not the president of America. This you need to know. This you need to know. And the man who made up the two-party system was Horace Greeley. Horace Greeley was a newspaper publisher. He was a lot more than that, but I'll just go with newspaper publisher right now for this session. And Horace Greeley, he hated Abraham Lincoln. I mean, hated him. Oh, God, if there was any way to hate somebody the right way, that was Horace Greeley and his feelings about Lincoln. Now, in the Constitution for the United States, I forget the article, and this goes back to the actor Danny Glover and his appearance in front of the House for reparations for slavery. And what I know is, had Mr. Glover actually seen the organic Constitution for the United States, he would not be making claims that he is the son, the grandson of an African slave. Because you see, in the organic Constitution for the United States, it clearly states in one of those articles, no descendant of an African slave can ever become a U.S. citizen. Now that's what it says in the organic Constitution for the United States. So what I would suggest that you, what, do you want to be called black people? What I would suggest you black people do is stop telling people this. Because when the organic Constitution for the United States is produced and shown to you, you will see that article and you will see that amendment. And if you are so convinced that you are the relative of an African slave, and yet you consider yourself, or you call yourself a U.S. citizen, you are in violation of constitutional law. You're in violation because it clearly states no descendant of an African slave can ever become a U.S. citizen. And the actor Danny Glover, he lives here. And on his passport, he put U.S. citizen. And to Mr. Glover, I pray the most for him. And I pray for only the best for him. More than anything else, I pray that he enhances his scholarship, especially about his bloodlines. Especially about his bloodlines. But that's what this was mainly about. It is an answer to a viewer. And I will say it again for clarification. The Constitution of the United States was written in 1871. The Constitution for the United States was drafted up and it was signed by my great uncle Mohammed bin Abdullah Bey of Imperial Morocco. And he signed that in 1786. So both the Constitution and the Treaty of Peace and Friendship were both signed in 1786. And again, I'll just throw this out there. The Constitution of the United States was written and forced on the people in 1871. How many years was that after they murdered Lincoln that they forced that rag on people? I would like for all of you to think. I would like for all of you to think. Because thinking is one way to get you out of the worst possible jams. And right now you're in a jam as a people because they took your Constitution. And when they took your Constitution, they took away all of your constitutional rights because they're in that document. The document of 1786 is the true Constitution for the United States. And you all need to know this, and you need to know it before things get too much further along. You need to know these things because they're important to you and your successors. They're important. And the one thing that you all really need to do in earnest is begin talking about this among yourselves. You do not have to be a constitutional scholar. Simply be able to read at the 3rd grade level. I am going to continue my search, and I have been searching for another copy. I do have one, but I'm too embarrassed to show it to you. I've had it for a whole bunch of years, and I did not preserve it properly. But it is a copy of the actual Constitution for the United States. And so I want to give my Islam to the viewer who brought this subject up. And I pray that this has helped you in some way to enhance your own scholarship. The Constitution of 1871 is the one that says the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution that Uncle Ceedy signed was the Constitution for the United States. Now let me break this down to you. Let me demonstrate these degrees to you. Now, if you'll remember, I taught you what the fourth degree of moral science was. It is language. It is language. And if you are able to read at the third grade level, and you have a dictionary and thesaurus nearby, you will be able to see what I am trying to teach you now. I'm going to have to find another copy of the Constitution for the United States because I would just be too embarrassed to bring out the ratted up, tatted up copy that I have. I got this copy at the direction of my masters. I was 13 when I obtained my copy of the Constitution for the United States. My masters were, in that session, my masters were teaching me real history and political science. They were teaching me real history and political science. And the whys and the wherefores and wherefores of everything that happened up until the time I met my masters. But again, prayerfully, to the viewer, I thank you. And I enjoyed this. And prayerfully, you have added to your scholarship. In the meantime, you take care of one another, you love one another, and you protect one another. And I'll see you all this Saturday at 1 o'clock. And from what I understand, there may be some snow flurries, but that ain't enough to keep us away from something important. We're Americans. You have to go a long way to put us down or to stop us or to make us anything other than what we are. I'll see you all on Saturday at 1 o'clock. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. In the meantime, in between time, you all be good to one another. And I bid you peace.